Today on the program, we've got a very interesting and very unique album here. It is from a collective that call themselves the Luke Project. This is volume 2. Now, the Luke Project is pretty much a passion project spearheaded by one Casey Walking Stick, who I happen to know from open mics a few years back when I first started kind of coming around. So I've been aware of her music for a while. She's got an album out there called The Depths. She's a pianist, she's a piano teacher, and her work tends to reflect very strongly in her beliefs. And more or less what I'm saying is this is Christian music. Now, the Luke Project is referring to the book of Luke, which is one of the 4 Gospels of the Bible. And yeah, this thing's been in the works for quite some time. And not only that, but this is volume 2 here. This is the first album to come out under the Luke Project name. But they're starting with the second volume, and this is really interesting. There's a whole projected album universe of sorts. There's a volume 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so we're expecting to get volumes 1, 3, and 4 somewhere down the road. Now, while this is more or less the brainchild of Casey Walking Stick, she's brought in a lot of friends, a lot of talents on this thing, and there's tons of people involved in varying degrees to varying levels of this album, which is huge. This is 2 hours and 20 minutes long. It's a very long album. I want to say 24 tracks, and those tracks can go on for like 7 minutes. It's a long album. It's a long listen. So, what exactly is the Luke Project? We should definitely address that. Basically, the mission of the Luke Project is to document the entirety of the book of Luke into song, verbatim. So, literally everything you hear, every lyric is taken straight out of the Bible, and it's in the order in which it was written. So, volume 2 actually starts somewhat later in the book of Luke. Volume 1 will start at the start of the book of Luke, and then 3 and 4 will finish out the book of Luke. The editorial process on this must have been crazy. You've got a lot of different voices in there, and a lot of it's narration, because it's the way Bible is written, but there's also a lot of speaking roles that are kind of embodied by other people. Like there's certainly one consistent voice that represents those red-lettered words of Jesus. And there's, whenever there's like speech from a crowd, you get a whole chorus of people who are singing those words. And it's very melodic, it's very pretty, and it's very piano-based, though it does fill out a lot. I know Dustin Ragland, who is an extraordinary drummer, did pretty much all the drums on this thing, and you can tell there's it benefits a lot from the talents of these people. I will say it's a long listen, 2.5 hours nearly. I listened to the whole thing, and I guess I don't feel like there's enough variation in the music. There is some variation. She does a good job of keeping a flow, and she creates moments out of moments in the Bible. It's really nice, but just from kind of a genre perspective, it can be a little bit flat sometimes. Case in point, second to last track, okay? Second to last track is about the story where Jesus casts demons into pigs. That is a pretty hardcore story, And somehow that's not really conveyed in the music for me. The music is still like pretty pianos and pretty melodies, and it's like I feel like the music should be a little bit more intense or kind of dark or something, but it's just, this whole album is filled with so much light, and it glows, and everybody sings so softly. It's almost operatic in some ways because of the way that everything is sung, like nothing is spoken, and it's epically long, but it's also not really grand like an opera would be, or even like a rock opera. Uh, I would call it more of a soft rock opera if I were to go down that route. So yeah, not really something I would want to listen to again in full. But I think it is really more of a project and more of a tool for making the Bible easier to digest. And in that, I think it succeeds quite a bit. As a whole, though, I don't know. I feel like it could have been even more epic, I guess, to justify this length. More climaxes, even more maybe diverse instrumentation. There's some efforts to do that, but even like I remember specifically, there's one song for sure that had like synthetic horns, and I was like, you got all these people at your disposal, obviously. Bring in some real horns. It's a very key difference. And why not have horns like all throughout? Horns are very biblical. Anyway, I guess that's kind of my take on it. But we have one more thing we got to discuss here. Is this a weird album? Yes. I would say that there's a long-standing tradition in the church of directly translating scripture into song, often, for the sake of memory and that sort of thing. But this is kind of unlike that. This is like a whole different scale, a whole different ambition, the likes of which I don't know that anybody's really done before. I mean, certainly people have tried to translate the Bible into like digestible forms such as graphic novels and things of that nature, but oftentimes you end up kind of watering it down and really simplifying it to its, more basic points. And this is a direct verbatim translation into song. And so that alone kind of deviates from the norm a bit. That is weird. The concept and just the dedication to the concept. You got to be a little weird to do something like this. That said, I think the music itself, the tonality of the music is very familiar and it's very safe. And I think that works for a lot of people. I think that's going to appeal to a lot of church type folks who don't want anything too radical in their biblical teachings. So totally fine, but not really that weird musically. So I think I got to cut it right down the middle. The concept is pretty weird. The ambition is pretty weird. But the music itself, not so weird. The Bible stories, though, pretty weird. So I'm going to do a 5. We're going to do a 5. And that will do it for this episode of First Impressions. Luke Project, Volume 2. Very interesting album. Have you heard it? I would be very interested in hearing your thoughts on this. Feel free to leave me a comment in the comment section or hit me up on social media. We are at Weirder OK on all social media platforms. Would love to hear your feedback on this because this is a very interesting album. So yeah, thanks again for watching. Thanks for supporting the channel. And website is coming soon, so stay tuned for that. Yeah, thanks for checking it out, and we'll see you in the next one.
Fish head soup is a mighty fine soup, even though it's kind of green.